Hello and welcome back to the Awakening Philosophy Podcast. My name is Jed and we are in the Socrates and Jesus, a Dialogue in Heaven book today. It is fantastic. So, where are we up to so far? Well, we've understood the cause of human problems in the world. Belief-based thinking, specifically Abrahamic belief-based thinking, and even more specific than that, being a slave to a root analogy that believers are stuck in. They do not know they are following a root analogy behind their thinking, preventing them from engaging in reason, understanding, knowing the mind, and fulfilling their purpose to know the self. That's specifically blocked from believers, and in particular, Abrahamic believers in our timeline. The class of specific belief that is playing out its tragic implications in this planet, in this time, is Christianity, Islam, and Judaism, and they all have a root cause, Abraham, specifically a root analogy. As Abraham was instructed by God to kill his son, so too modern believers have to kill what they love and kill others as well to follow the will of God. Believers don't know this because to know that would require understanding, which is specifically blocked from belief. After all, if you understood something, why would you believe somebody else? And self-reflection. How can you be a many in a group following the will of your leader if you were engaged in your own self-reflection, seeking your own self-goals? So, a slave to a root analogy, believers. On the other hand, the purpose of all human beings here is to move from that way of being into one where you can actually understand analogies and use them well. So from being a slave to analogies, terrible ones, to being a master of analogies, because analogy is what thought is itself. We think through analogies. You might recognize a lot of IQ tests, or most, if not all, of the questions on IQ tests are about processing analogies. That's how we think. So understanding will allow us to think for ourselves and understand analogies. Reflect on our own false beliefs to find the terrible analogy we carry with us in our mind that cause our individual problems. That is the self-image that we are identified with, and the analogy behind it is our origin scene where we developed it is the greater, or as we were blocked when we were young, so too analogically our present. If we seek a similar goal, we will be blocked. Or that's individually or culturally. What's behind the mass murder and oppression in the world? To discover the root analogy behind Abrahamic religions. That's the use of understanding to purify false analogies. But also understanding can use analogies to move upward. That's called an anagogic movement. That's what we're doing today. Now there's two levels of analogy here in our upward movement that we're getting from the book today. The first level is understanding the realm of being. If to know the self we have to go through mind, or the realm of being, then we want to understand that realm of being, which is itself a yoga or a preparation for the experience of it, which is the spiritual experience. So how do we understand something that we haven't experienced? Through analogies. We relate it to things that we can experience or we are familiar with in our everyday world of becoming, the physical world, to make sense of the metaphysical world or the world of being. That's called metaphysics. Okay? And metaphysics needs to be able to explain all of the principles that we use in our physical world and also the principles of the metaphysical world, as well as the causes for everything that exists in both. That's what metaphysics is. And there's another layer of analogy happening here because, hey, that can be difficult to remember or talk about to your friends over coffee. Cheers. When I say coffee, we have a sip of coffee because we have fun here. Wow! So you can create another level of analogy by taking metaphysics and personifying all of those, what would you call it, functions? All of those principles and causes. That's theology. Theology, or the study of the divine, or the study of God, isn't literal. Now, you might be thinking, hang on a second, those Abrahamic religions that we mentioned, that can be, by definition, understood to be the cause of our human problems culturally, don't they say that there is actually a literal God, a space daddy on a cloud, judging us and cranky, and sometimes telling us that slavery is okay, sometimes telling us that it's not, sometimes telling us that it's okay for preachers to be billionaires, but then some churches say that he's not saying that, and then human beings kill each other because of what their trusted officials say Sky Daddy thinks? Isn't he a literal person in the clouds? No, that is bullshit. That's a lie. It's a grift. The grift. Now, that's not something you have to believe. It's something you can understand, so long as you are free enough from your own beliefs. If beliefs in principle limit your own use of your own self-reflection, mind, and logos or understanding, then to the extent you can free yourself from your early programming, brainwashing, upbringing, and become curious about developing those things, self-reflect, understanding of the nature of mind or reality, through self-reflection to reach your own self-goals, then you can understand this. It's not a object of belief, it's something you can understand. But as we're looking at today, you can verify your understanding in direct experience as well. That's knowledge. And of course, so that's, if belief is the fourth stage of thinking in our evolution upwards, understanding is third, verifying your understanding in direct experience is the second, but that means there's one more state above that, the state of the self, or the ultimate state of enlightenment. The self, or the one self, which is the cause of, or the conditions for, metaphysics and theology. So, metaphysics and theology is the use of 3, understanding, to know 2, mind. Let's point to on the board. Our physical world of becoming, is where we get our beliefs that cause our problems, but we can develop understanding, which is a shadow of being, to know being. That's understanding. Okay, the principles and causes of our physical world, that we need to understand to be good people and to function well in the world. And also so we can reach that. That's understanding, dianoia. The structure of that is the dialectic. The experience of what we're understanding is knowledge. That's metaphysics. And personified as gods, that's theology. So if this is 4 beliefs, 3 understanding, 2 knowledge, 1. That's the question. So if these are the causes and principles for our world of becoming, so something that we must demand for every politician and spiritual leader, but that's secondary because it's for our own way of being and our own seeing primarily. If that's metaphysics, the causes and principles, the conditions for them to be causes and principles has to exist even further back or more profoundly and transcendently. So that's our question. If this is understanding, this is knowledge, what's beyond knowledge? How do we know that realm? That's the mystery that we are wondering about as we read as well. So, that's what we're doing today. So people who want to, who are stuck in their problems or want to manipulate people to get them to act in a harmful way against their own interests so they can grift money and power from them, they will pretend theology or the gods are literal sky daddies, and they use images. In childhood, you can't learn this as an adult because it's not rational, but you get it from childhood to derive your beliefs, which is why Trump, who is cartoonishly unjust, has his base are Christians. He's not Christian himself, which should be a red flag if Christians were able to think and understand. But we're not blaming them, not attacking them. We are simply understanding that anybody, Christian or otherwise, stuck in belief, necessarily in their upbringing has to be taught to fear understanding, fear the mind and knowledge, and fear the self. Otherwise, they would embrace them, and they'd leave beliefs and image thinking behind. Because understanding is fantastic. You understand how to ride a bike, you can ride a bike. It's great. Everyone wins. It's a win-win. It's a win-win. You can help others ride a bike too. Oh, and by the way, knowledge is fantastic. The experience of this is bliss. Who wouldn't want bliss? It's also the paradigm for justice and beauty. Who wouldn't want that? A just world, their creations to be just and beautiful. Who wouldn't want that? It's a win-win.
It's a win-win.
And ultimately, our purpose is to recognize ourselves, to know the self and show the self, to exist in a way of being where we are our authentic selves, while recognizing that it's the shadow of self that is the highest experience of reality, eternity, which then creates our physical world. It's from the self. Who wouldn't want to realize that they were the ultimate? Why would you want to accept an image of yourself as just a small bean, or inadequate, or not good enough, or a sinner, or evil? Sinner, evil, or less than a man because you're a woman, all this fucking terrible shit are lies to get you to fear these wonderful things, objectively wonderful and true and universal things. So you accept a false image of yourself as less and needing to follow someone else to get beliefs. So people ask, actually I saw this from this guy.
This guy had to admit, that the people in his life who helped convince him to be a conservative in the first place, parents, clergy, other authority figures, were wrong. Not only was wrong, but lied to him, and that he fell for it. All of that takes so much courage and character.
It's that courage and character that we develop on this channel by this game. Now, that same content creator who does fantastic work, I saw another Instagram reel from him today, and he pointed out the question, why do MAGA Christians vote for politicians who are actively hurting them, taking their money, making everything more expensive, making the world a terrible place to live in? Why do they vote against their own interests? His answer to that was fear. Because they've been taught to fear from a young age through Abrahamic religious theology, through their own personal origin scene in their house, and through the constant bombardment of fear and hate from Fox News and the billionaires who own the media. He says, well, one of their interests isn't financial or isn't material interests, it's emotional interests. They want a big, strong daddy figure to believe in because of their fear. That guy's amazing. He's one step away from philosophy. I recommend his channel. Actually, I should... Okay, the content creator is Keegan Tatum. It's all good stuff. If you go through all of his Instagram reels, what you'll find is everything that you've been learning about the pathologos, he expresses the scientific version of. He doesn't have the language of philosophy yet. He's young. And of course, there aren't a lot of us out there sharing this. And we've actually addressed that in this book, by the way. We are in the tradition of Aristotle, not Socrates. But he gets really, really close. He describes in empirical terms or scientific terms, which is kind of like this, what we are understanding properly with philosophy. So if you go through his stuff, you'll have fun. You'll have fun seeing everything that you've been learning reflected in his work. One level down. In other words, here. He's here. In the physical world of becoming, where we can derive beliefs and opinions, we can actually develop a kind of understanding of the physical world. So that's called what Socrates calls philomethesis, a love of learning. So even in our physical world, there are certain people who are engaged in reason and reflection to a high level. And these are the people that I tend to look to try and reach out and to let them know, hey, you're here. You're one step from here. There's the quest.
You're a wizard, Harry.
You're actually a wizard, Harry. This is the quest, the hero's journey. He's one of those people. So let's listen to the one.
Anyone who isn't rich vote Republican. They don't represent you. Here's an answer. People's interests aren't just about money. If you're overly sensitive to fear and you need a big daddy strongman to feel, emphasis on feel, protected, the Republicans represent your interests. If for whatever reason you just don't want women to be happy and free, the Republicans represent your interests. You know how Trump...
Right? Other to other. Believers. They can't develop themselves through what we're learning here. That requires understanding and ousia. Self-reflection is ousia. So they feel like they're improving by crushing others. Believers can't make shit, they can only break shit. And that is expressed in sexism. In fact, that's the carrot. So what he's talking about, he literally just said, hey, people can be manipulated against their own interests if you pretend they are inherently better than another group, because then they have someone to look down on. In fact, we have that quote. That's really nice. If you can convince the lowest white man that he's better than the best colored man, he won't notice you're picking his pocket. Hell, give him someone to look down on, he'll empty his pockets for you. President Lyndon B. Johnson. Applies to any other group. Others to others. Remember, believers are others to others. That's the dialectical definition of their mode of cognition. So yes, so he's saying, hey, you know who's another that you can look down on? Women. Ever noticed that for several thousand years, women have been treated as less than men for no objective true reason at all? Socrates' teacher was a woman. Oh, it's just propaganda to manipulate people through false images to create false beliefs for oppression and violence. Let's keep listening to his thing.
Being in power gives some people an excuse to be their absolute worst selves. Well, the Republicans represent those people's emotional interests. What I'm really trying to nail down here is this. So, you're correct to assume that their interests are selfish, but not all interests are material. They're not all financial. They're not all like a quality of life kind of thing in a measurable way. A lot of interests are just emotional for people. In fact, I guarantee you, please comment below, try to think about this, do some self-reflection. I guarantee you that a lot of your interests are also emotional. And what I'm about to say, I mean this sincerely. If you offered most right-wingers a trade where for 4 years they get 0 increase in their wages, but the government hurts a group of people that they don't like, most of them are going to take that trade. You know how I know that? Because that's what they do every 4 goddamn years.
That's the thing. So, others to others. That last thing that he said, they hurt someone in a different group than them, others to others. And we've also seen from this book, which is a banger, that this idea of inflicting suffering on another person is the highest mark of knowing for believers, because sadism is another mark of belief-based thinking. Why? Let's go back to this one that we're using here, because if actual knowing is of this realm, it's not a physical realm. You can't know the physical realm that you perceive through your senses. You can have images and beliefs and opinions about it. You can also develop an understanding of it if you look at the principles which exist here, by the way. And if beliefs block you from progressing beyond the physical world, then what feeling do you have for belief? How do you know you're a knower? If our soul seeks knowing, but you're blocked, what do you take? Because belief doesn't have a feeling. You know what does give you a feeling? Hurting people. A negative feeling, but you can be taught to understand or make sense of that negative feeling of hurting other people as a mark of knowledge. You are a good Christian if you kill the heathens. You're a good Jew if you kill the Palestinians and the Goyim. You're a good Muslim if you kill the heretics or the infidels. It's the same fucking shit. You're a good MAGA if you kill the brown people or the foreigners. You're a good British nationalist if you hate people who look different from you, or women. It's the same game. All we're doing is understanding what it really is. That's the difference. Now, what's interesting about people who have not yet got into this true philosophy is what language they use to try and make sense of that which they can't make sense of. Keegan, what's his name again? Sorry, mate. Keegan Tatum. That's his Instagram name too. Worth a follow. He said emotional needs. They're not emotional, which is fascinating because in the philosophical midwifery book, the person who actually understands the root principle belief behind this clan identity problem, the guy who wrote a book understanding it, Pierre Grimes, met Albert Ellis, who's the creator of modern psychotherapeutic models. Cognitive emotive behavioral therapy is its full name. In other words, he stuck in the word emotive because he couldn't say that problems are all cognitive or rational. Rational emotive behavioral therapy. It's not all rational. It is. You just need this. So, Keegan has a similar issue. He calls them emotional needs. That's not emotional, it's the pathologos. So, but what is he pointing out that we're talking about him now? The reason we're talking about him now? Fear. Fear of understanding, fear of the mind, fear of the self. So you can therefore take a negative image of yourself that you can identify with, so you can function in terms of beliefs given to you by an authority figure. In the world, that's the Abrahamics, which are then manipulated by tyrants like Netanyahu and Trump. And for every individual human being, that's the pathologos. So, for example, I might reach out to Keegan and say, hey, by the way, here's you. The reason why you are struggling to understand the root cause, and you have to use like words like emotion, is because you need the next stage in learning from loving learning philomathesis is philosophy. By the way, it's not a blame game. We've only really been able to do it in the last 40-50 years because of Pierre Grimes and Juan Balboa's translations of Plato. But this is the game. If I did say it to him and he says, no, I know better, or that's scary, then that would be his images and belief. But I don't know, maybe he can be open to it. Let's see. Oh, and by the way, the book told us why it took us 2,000 years to actually pick up philosophy again. Let's have a look at it. So long, maybe? Beliefs. Yeah. False beliefs concluded from early life experiences when the child exhibited a sense of freedom and openness. They violated the boundaries of the family clan identity. That's when we get a problem, which is a false belief about oneself that is assumed to be true. Everyone gets that. But we want to know about wanting to add here we go. Jesus saying here, would you say that those later philosophers discovered more? Later, he means 2020. Or Pierre Grimes. Or 2000, let's say 1980s onwards. And hopefully more with how popular this channel could get. Let's knock on wood. Would you say that the later philosophers discovered more about actual philosophy, Socrates, real philosophy, not Aristotle, materialism, than those who are present around at your time? If so, why did we have to wait for later thinkers to see what was already there to be seen in the past? Shall we say that later philosophers had a vision that was not obscured by a need, false need by the way, a need to add what they wanted to believe to what was being revealed? In other words, those who have not gone through philosophical midwifery and dream analysis to address those false beliefs we just talked about from our childhood when we were in a state of freedom, openness, and self, still have those unsuspected images of the self and false beliefs about self and reality that cause you to project. Trump's lying all the time. Why do the MAGAs believe them? Why do fascists and Nazis believe him? And Christians believe him? They project their beliefs onto the world. Therefore, the reason why even the people at Socrates' time weren't able to understand what he was saying, and it's taken us till 2025 to see what he was saying, is because only now do we have dream analysis and philosophical midwifery back. So we're not adding, interpreting, projecting, adding what's not there, or leaving out what is. Because that's caused by beliefs. Ever heard the expression about fascists or right-wingers? Every accusation is a confession. It's this. So what? So, people who are trapped in that way of functioning because they haven't gone through midwifery and dream analysis can be manipulated by those images and beliefs to think that actually there is a sky daddy with a white beard who is telling you to kill that person and kill that person and kill that person, while the church gets all the money and the oil and rapes all the people and etc. But what we are seeing is that's just image thinking, or the expression that's common today, shapes and colors, people motivated by shapes and colors. Oh, Jesus loves me. Look at this picture my grandma has on her fireplace of white Jesus. White Jesus. With blue eyes and blonde hair. Why? Doesn't make sense. Jesus wouldn't have looked like that. Doesn't matter. Beliefs are not true. say opposition to truth. Other to others, other to truth. So that's why they take it literally, even though all of this, the sanctification or the pedestalization or making the highest virtue belief thinking, faith, isn't from Jesus, and we know that now because we have the Gnostic Gospels that talk about Jesus saying understanding is important, experiencing the state of mind, heaven is a state of being. You need to also understand that and go beyond that to the kingdom of God. These are metaphors to talk about the self, mind through understanding. That's what we get from the Gnostic Gospels that we discovered that were burnt by the church. The flipping it on the head is Paul. So all this crap about faith being good is bullshit from Paul, who murdered people he didn't like and decided he was better than Jesus. He denied everything Jesus said and he set up the church. That's modern Christianity. Why is it so appealing? Because it plays into pathologos, the principle of pathologos. If every human being gets a false belief growing up, the people who are most entrenched and most blocked from understanding, well, it seems familiar, right? And if it's familiar, it gives you the vibes. And if the vibes tells me it's true, then it must be true. What George Bush called truthiness. Feels true, must be true. Why does it feel true? Oh, because Trump's just like my dad. Or my preacher. Vibes. I want to have a beer with him. Gives me good vibes. So, therefore, a rational and a moral and ethical imperative for everybody to go through midwifery and dream analysis to address that so we don't become pawns to these fascists and ourselves act out our injustice on others similarly. And also, it's the answer to the question, how come it took us 2,000 years or 2,500 years to hear what Socrates was saying? Midwifery and dream analysis. But thankfully, we have that. And we have a book written by someone who rediscovered those things. So we can actually listen to what Socrates says. And now that we know that beliefs are not literal sky daddies, wanting you to have slaves sometimes, but sometimes not, hating women sometimes, but the church in the different street says that Sky Daddy doesn't hate women. All crazy horse shit. Others to others, that's the cause of our violence and mass murdering and violence and genocide in the world. Now that we know that that's not what the gods are, today we're going to find out what they really are. Theology. Personifications of the principles of not the physical world. Again, people who like Keenan here, really close, one step away from this, but the metaphysical world, or the world of being. The metaphysics, the study of being. Theology, what gods really are, the personifications of those principles. Not an actual literal dude in the sky. So, yay, we solved the problem of religion. Hooray. Our task is to help people share that with people. It's not just for us, it's for everybody. Everyone has problems with the same cause. Okay? Our problem is Jesus puts it this way: The many can only be entertained and not taught these mysteries because they don't seek to understand these sacred things. They either stand in awe of them because they think that they are just a small bean and can't also play. They don't realize they're a wizard, Harry.
You're a wizard, Harry.
Or they just ignore them. The many seek, this is another one, page 57. The many out there seek only to be entertained and not taught. You people have the great mysteries like the Panathenaea. For our part, we have a crying wall and a temple with law overriding everything. The difference between Hellenic thought and belief. We have a bunch of nonsense, displays of I'm a believer, look at me at the crying wall, and a bunch of instructions, but no understanding. So how do we overcome the fact that people would rather be entertained and not taught? Considering this is literally for everyone, the purpose for all of us being here, and necessary to understand and share as a species if we want to solve human problems, or individually if we care about people. That's one of the puzzles that we carry as we read. So, that's where we are. Let's get into the actual understanding of the gods, theology, and metaphysics. The two are hand in hand. Let's jump in. Okay, so we started with... so how are we going to explore the gods? Well, let's take our soul's journey from where we start off as babies, as wee small beans, to small bean is an expression that means you think you're inadequate, you're not good enough to handle reason and understanding. Small babies, we start as small babies, forgetting the nature of being and the self, but we can go through a learning process. That process is called anagogic movement. We move upwards through the levels of reality. That's ontology. Through different cognitive functions. That's epistemology. To the source, the self. Okay. First and final cause is the fancy way of talking about that. Socrates says to begin this quest, an experience of beauty and harmony, or beauty and order, can wake you up. So we're on the hunt for the 12 Olympian gods, or the worldly gods of the natural world. So we can exhibit a mode of perfection by knowing the self, knowing and showing the self, being who we really are. This drive for perfection begins after an encounter with a work of beauty that could only have come into existence through a mastery of the art. Then, after that experience, you can be, Jesus said, the many only want to be entertained, and if they do come across something profound like this, they stand in awe or ignore it. But if you do more than just stand in awe, you are drawn to it. Now you're on the quest.
You're a wizard, Harry.
Now you're a wizard, Harry.
I'm looking for someone to share in an adventure.
Now you're on the adventure. Okay. Now usually that's experienced through an attraction and cultivation of harmony and rhythm, or music. So you experience the power of ousia through music and the experience of beauty. Ousia turns you around. You start to think about yourself in a new way, and the elevation of the soul is accompanied by a desire to understand and know the source of that beauty and also truth. It's true. Music has to work the way it does. You can't just play any old note and make it sound beautiful. There is a truth there. Anyone can play the guitar. Anyone can play music. Because it's understandable. That's the difference. Belief isn't true. Belief is in opposition to truth. And it's only for believers. That's why you can't have Jews and non-Jews living together. Or Jews and Nazis living together. Jews and Goyim, or Christians and heathens, etc., etc. Because it's not based on truth, it's not for everyone. You have to be a member of the team. Understanding doesn't work that way. Rationality doesn't work that way. That's immaturity. So, it's true. By the way, if you wonder about the source of that beauty and truth, you are attracted to the dialectic.
That's weird that you think that.
Yeah. It's weird that we think that, but it's true. Because it's the dialectic that allows our soul to make that journey into beauty and truth, and ultimately to know the self. Another word for the self is the one self. Another word for that is the good. Capital G, not good. So the good self or the one self. Take your pick. And by the way, if we take this beauty, harmony, and dialectic, we have a triad. That's the anagogic triad. You can't be doing the dialectic unless you know the order, unless you know everything we've got on the board. How do you do the dialectic? It's those four things that we talk about a lot. What is it? Here we go. Here's a good one. Right. Definition. And these are the terms, the parts. And they have to be hierarchically arranged. Definition comes first. Demonstration comes next. Then division, then conclusion. You can't do the dialectic unless you have an ordered structure, harmoniously ordered. But you won't want to learn this stuff unless you have a beautiful streamer motivating you to go through this process. Or beautiful music inspiring you to go through the learning process of the ordered terms of music. What is an octave? What is a perfect fifth? What is a perfect fourth? Etc. So, beauty and harmony together into the dialectic. Experience this through music. Wonder about its source, the dialectic. Why? Because the dialectic is the structure of everything. It's the structure of understanding, so we can use it in dialogue to have best chats over coffee. Cheers. We can use it in dream analysis to unpack the meaning of our dreams. We can use it in midwifery to find the unsuspected image of the self and the unsuspected false analogy causing our problems. We can use it, that's midwifery. We can use it in philosophy to do what we're doing right here. That's the dialectic, the source of beauty and harmony. Why? Well, it's also the intelligible nature of the experience of being or beauty itself. So you need both. You need to be inspired by the whole beauty to learn the parts and then use them both together to seek the good. Understanding, knowledge, the good self. That's the anagogic triad. Last time we talked about music and how people who hear me play music sometimes ask, how long have you been playing? And I've been curious about that question. Why are you asking me that? Oh, they want to know the source. That's it. And my goal is to see if I can find these people and introduce the dialectic in some way so I can help them, help their soul. Last time we also talked about how you can experience that in other things other than music as well. I talked about a streamer who gave a simple, elegant, beautiful, that's the beautiful, but also most perfectly structured and ordered 3 sentences to describe 3 different hypotheses that defines the topic. And when I saw those heard those 3 sentences uttered, it was amazingly harmoniously ordered and amazingly beautiful and simple, and I was in awe. And I wondered, how the heck did that happen? How did that person pull off that stunt? That's amazing. And equally so, we looked at what's his name? I keep getting his name wrong. Keegan Tatum. I keep calling him Keegan Tatum. Keegan Tatum, similar. His shorts are simple and beautiful, but also well structured or harmonious. That's interesting. It's those sort of people who I tend to reach out to and say, hey, by the way, have you heard of this thing called philosophical midwifery? Which would be an introduction to the dialectic. So far, I haven't got a lot of people on board yet, but I'll keep trying. Oh, that's not true. Some people watch this stream, so there are some good eggs out there. An egg is an egg that you buy in New Zealand. An egg. Good egg. Good egg. Okay. So we've got the causes, but there's also conditions for causes to be causes. So you can say, how did you get that fire? Well, I struck a match. I needed the friction. I needed the combustible material on the end of the match head. I needed some wood to be burning. So and I struck that match. So those are the causes. But the conditions, I needed to be in an oxygen-rich environment. Without that condition, I couldn't have that flame. There you go. The conditions for all principles and for all living things must be prior to all else. However, for living things to be, there must be a power, and the power gives them an activity. And we just talked about the best kind of activity, which is that understanding and a power derived from a perception of beauty and a love. That's our power. We're attracted towards that beautiful person or the beautiful experience or the beautiful soul or beauty itself. And the existence, the way of being we want is a dialectician. Okay. But those principles, existence, power, and activity also have to have those things too. Existence has to exist and have a power and activity of existence to maintain existence in things. Power has to exist as well. If power didn't exist, how could you say there's a thing called power? It has to exist. And it has to have a power for it to exist, and it has to have an activity or function so we know it's doing something. It's empowering things, inspiring philosophers. And same with activity. That has to be an existence of the dialectic and a power that it acts out in its activity, giving us this triad, which is actually got many triads in it. But, oh no, it's doing that thing. Oh, I hate when it does that thing. The one time I didn't check it. back. So, these are the... What happened then? Here are the three things: existence, power, and activity, but each of them also has a mini EPA, EPA, EPA. And I'm on the wrong screen. What's going on? Existence, power, and activity, but each of them are themselves triads of EPA, EPA, EPA. Giving us these three: existence, power, and activity. But there has to be another principle that preserves them, keeps them together. And Jesus is astonished. And so Socrates responds to that astonishment by saying, "What is it you find astonishing?" Which is something that I have to practice when I play music. Which makes sense. It gets people to talk about beauty and order, beauty and harmony. And the whole point is to lead them to the dialectic. So, gets people talking. He says it's beautiful in its simplicity and it's ordered in its structure. And then when I read that the first time, I thought, oh, that was just like that streamer who gave those three hypotheses. It's amazingly simple. Just three simple sentences that explain three different hypotheses to explain a single idea. Yeah, and it was well structured and simple. We can call that rational. Isn't that interesting? Okay, so now we've got a task. Let's bring in our players. Socrates says he will give a function, and then it's our job to, or Jesus' job to give a name. So we can get the gods of nature, or the Olympian gods. Okay. This is the realm of all living and intelligent beings. The gods function in a hierarchical way to bring full realization of the truth to mankind. There is a truth, capital T, that's not just an opinion or a perspective. It's not an object of debate. It's something you reach through the dialectic. So, number one. First, God is the source of all that exists, and he's guided by divine wisdom, and he takes care of living things and non-living things. So let's make a list as we go. Number one. Source. Divine wisdom. Cares for living, all living and non-living. All right. Number two. Second, says Socrates. Second, there is a God who is the source of Usia's power. Cause of Usia's power. and motion. And it is through Usia that he rules over all motion and generation. Well, let's read it through first before we take notes, because I got a highlighter. Another God is the divine power of Usia that proceeds to activity. Can you see? Existence, Usia, power, and activity. It is this that inspires all generation in the physical realm, as well as inspires the soul to know the self. Know thyself. Interesting. The first God cares for everything. The second God rules over and causes all motion and generation. But then this God inspires us into an activity. The activity to know the self. Oh, and being's activity in generating the physical realm. A God of existence, a God of power or Usia, and a God of activity. Oh, what happened there? Fireworks. There is a God that preserves the purity of Usia for all the being of things. For all the being of things. And is the source of the stability of wholes. So already we can see a word, preserve. So I'm guessing that's that preserve triangle. So only because some spam. Every day is a spam. Every day we be spamming. Every day we spamming. I'm guessing that first God is, if it's the cause of the source of existence and the care of existence, probably this one, because it's existence. And the next one was the cause of the existence of Usia. That's interesting. So we've been talking about understanding and Usia as the necessary qualities for development and the things that are blocked by belief. But now we can add to our understanding of Usia. It's a power. It's not just self-reflection. It also has a power. Usia has a power. That's interesting. So this second God, I guess, would be here, the power, or the God that causes the existence of Usia, which is the power we use. And the third God causes the existence of activity. And this God inspires us to do philosophy. To know the self. To create a Twitch channel. To talk to your friends about this and not Tom Cruise over coffee. To have conversations about this is an activity that's not gossip. That would be the third God. And now it sounds like we're talking about the next in line would be the preserving one. So I'm guessing he's going to go 1, 2, 3. Let's see what he does. There is a God that preserves the purity of Usia for all the being of things, and is the source of the stability of wholes. That's interesting. Because we just said Usia was a power, so is that this God here? The preserving of Usia? But he then said it's the source of the stability of all wholes. So that could be this one here. Everything that exists has to have a wholeness about it. gods included. So it could be this one, or it could be this one. Let's keep reading. Oh. There is a God that preserves lives through the inherent intelligence and energy of Usia. That sounds like the power, baby.
Too stupid to understand. Can't do a power.
I'm gonna fix my soundboard. I'm gonna organize it so I got positive drops and negative ones and not mixed together. Because poggers is good, but
You are a fantastic moron.
we don't deserve to be called a fantastic moron when we had an insight. Okay, so preserves the inherent intelligence and energy of Usia. So that sounds like the power. Both are to do with Usia. That's interesting. So that means that we can add to our understanding of Usia its self-reflection, its power, but it also is what keeps things together. Because both the preserving existence is the source of wholes and the source of preserves the purity of Usia, and the next one preserves lives through the inherent intelligence and energy of Usia. So they're both Usia. Which means, as we learn about this, we're also getting a deeper understanding of what Usia is. This also keeps things together. That's interesting. There is a God that preserves lives through the inherent intelligence and energy of Usia, and in this way sustains the power and purity of all nature. Ooh. Let's go through more colors. Let's go 1, 2, 3. Let's do that. Again, says Socrates, another god guards the steadfast power of Usia. Again, Usia. So all these preservatives are to do. So guarding sounds like preserving. Usia again. So preserving is Usia's function as well. Guards the steadfast power of Usia to illuminate corporeally formed bodies with power and strength. Ooh. While giving the internal power of Usia a converting nature to those capable of receiving and turning about through it. So we've been talking about who do we reach out to? Who are the Keegan Tatums of the world who we reach out to and say, hey, by the way, you've done really well in your understanding and self-reflection. Now, let's look at the causes and principles of understanding and self-reflection. So you can, because you seem to be one capable of receiving and turning about through the power of Usia to know the self and fulfill your purpose. The capability. In other words, it sounds like an activity, doesn't it? Those capable of receiving and turning about. That's the activity. So there's an Usia that keeps all wholes together. There's an Usia that keeps intelligence together, and an Usia that is to bodies. So that's interesting. let's do that on the board. It's a good one. A lot going on in this particular triad. We have preserve, the preserving gods. The first one, pure Usia. Let's go a different color. Pure Usia. And also the source of wholes. That would be the existence of Usia itself. And then we have one that intelligence and energy of Usia. Let's give a special color. Green. So there's an Usia that applies to wholes. This applies to power and purity. Of all nature. All nature. That's interesting. So the preserving gods are also to do with Usia. There's a pure Usia that keeps all wholes together. There is an intelligence and energy that goes to all nature. And then finally there is Usia that illuminates bodies with power and strength. Illuminates bodies, physical bodies. With power and strength. Strength. While giving the internal power of Usia a converting nature. The plus internal Usia. So when you awaken your eye of the soul, you awaken your internal Usia. Internal Usia. Within bodies, within souls, a converting nature. Converting nature. A converting nature. You can convert yourself. You have, so this would be the for all those capable of receiving and turning about through it. Hey, if you are a loyal MAGA or religious believer or Abrahamic or any sort of belief identity, family beliefs included, you're blocked. You can't do it. You have to be to those capable. Now, in principle, all human beings are capable because we have language and self-reflection, but all human beings are blocked from the full use of that because of their pathologos and, secondarily, their religious beliefs. But we have the art of midwifery and dream analysis to utilize even the small amount of ousia and logos that humans have with a problem, so we can all do it in principle, but not everyone has the cojones, has the guts, has the spine, has the balls. All of these physical metaphors for courage. For those capable of receiving and turning about. Can you turn away from the physical world? The gossip over coffee about who Tom Cruise is dating, or what Jessica said to Janie, or the bright, shiny shapes and colors of your physical senses. Or I'm in red team and not blue team. I want revenge against the blue team. Oh, yes, that makes me a big, tough, strong guy. Can you turn around from that, from physical senses and physical pleasures, to engage, awaken your internal ousia, know your true nature eternally, and beyond that, the self? If so, then I will raise my can of coffee to you. I'm fancy because I drink coffee in a can. It's my birthday today, so it's a treat. Receiving and turning about through it. Now, it's not easy for a lot of people because we all get a pathologos. And the most intelligent people can be the best students to the worst teachers. But also, hey, if there's an inherent justice in reality, maybe it's the smartest and most capable of us who are given the biggest puzzles to solve, allowing us for the capacity to be tyrants, but also the capacity to evolve even more than everyone else. So if you find yourself, the Republic talks about this actually. Socrates in the Republic, he says, hey, imagine if you grew up rich and handsome or beautiful and really smart and capable at sports and everything. Wouldn't everyone praise you and want you to be a member of their team, a member of their community, a member of their family, a member of their religion or whatever? So think about how hard it would be to turn around and let go of all that. But if you didn't grow up rich, like Donald Trump, okay, he only has the rich thing, but still, he's openly said, I don't like self-reflection. That's the stupidest thing a human being can say. He's gotten away with it. He's failed in his ignorance upwards because of his extreme wealth and family privilege. So if you didn't grow up with family privilege, connections, you're not a Nepo baby, you didn't grow up with wealth, or you weren't great at sports games, or you didn't start beautiful, you're an ugly duckling. That could be the absolute best scenario for your soul. Got less physical binds, shapes and colors attracting you to your old way of being, and the physical pleasures and praise attached to that. giving you the most ideal conditions to be a philosopher. That also applies to problems. Being blocked from learning, being blocked from goals, having a difficult upbringing may have blocked you from falling into that category, but also forcing you to reflect and discover midwifery, dream analysis, and philosophy. Discover this. Turn about and understand the source of your puzzles. And having the biggest puzzle, it may carry with it everything you need to completely fulfill your purpose in physical incarnation. So, something to think about that for all the ugly ducklings out there in the world. Capable of receiving and turning about through it. So start with the biggest problems, but become the best guru, the best dialectician. Start, I don't know, least physically beautiful or less physically beautiful than the Chads and the Stacys, but become the most beautiful creatures on the planet. With a beauty that illuminates and reminds everyone of beauty itself. Through the beauty of the soul. And which is itself in principle the reflection of the realm above it. Because it's this intelligible, rational beauty of beauty itself that is the shadow or emanation of the one self, the first creation. Something to think about. So those capable of receiving and turning about through awakening their internal self-reflection, or usia, if you do that, you will awaken a power and strength to convert yourself to those higher causes, those higher ways of being of self. So that's pretty neat. So what do we know? So the preserving gods are to do with usia. There is an usia related to wholes, which is the existence. Usia related to all nature, which is the power. And usia related to physical bodies, which gives you an activity of self-reflection we call philosophy, or philodianoia, love of understanding. True philosophy. Usia relating to all wholes, keeping everything together. Usia relating to intelligence and energy. Maybe intelligence should be in green as well. Intelligence and all nature. Isn't this interesting? That's what keeps everything together. Hooray.
I'm cute. Like, it's cutie pie.
Okay, these gods, says Socrates, these gods provide their guardians with the power to eternally, because these are gods, these are a being, it's eternal, doesn't change. Doesn't matter who gets voted into office, they're always the same. So this kind of reasoning is better than scientific reasoning. It's eternal. Which helps us to understand what we were saying a second ago about our friend Keegan Teagan. Because there are some people motivated by shapes and colors, some people bound by beliefs. There are some people who are really good at using logic and evidence, like Keegan Teagan. But those who look to the eternal principles that apply to all, eternally, universally, is a higher use of reason and intelligence than even evidence and reason. Sorry, evidence and logic levels up into reason about the causes and principles. That's what we're doing right here. And by the way, these causes and principles apply to all that. It's if this is the source of the physical world, you're going to understand your science better, Keegan. You can use it to understand the nature of beliefs. You can use it to understand people's shapes and colors image thinking. Has a higher scope. Scope is the fancy word for that. These gods provide their guardians with the power to eternally maintain the order of nature. Ooh. Eternally. Therefore, this is the kind of learning that will always apply no matter where you are, in what time or dimension or what have you. Therefore, if this is the kind of learning that transcends our current lifetime, it's the only thing rationally worth understanding, learning about. Because you know you're going to physically die. Why are you learning about things that only apply to today? Eternally maintain the order of nature. Among the gods who are called Vivivic, okay? Third category. Vivivic. Vivivic is a fancy word for... Whoa, that color is terrible. Power. Vivivic. Enlivening, energizing, empowering, inspiring. These are all terms to do with Vivivic. Vivivic. And the way to remember it is the time of recording. The current, I think is the chief of the FBI of Donald Trump's MAGA movement, Vivek Ramaswamy. That's not his name. Let me pause and find it. Whatever. All right, I'm thinking that was Kash Patel, the guy who his eyes look in different directions, and he's a weird person. Just disgusting use of language to lie. But also another disgusting use of language is this guy, Vivek Ramaswamy. He earned a lot of money extracting wealth from people through a medical company, a pharmaceutical company, pathological liar. No, someone else. He criticized, ran for president, and then endorsed super fascist Donald Trump. So, yeah, another skeevy person. So, do not tie him to what we're talking about here. Think of another word for Vivivic, not Vivek. I wish I hadn't even brought that up. Okay, ignore everything I just said. Vivivic gods, nothing to do with that guy. There is a god that, among the gods who are called Vivivic, there is a god that functions through the power of Usia. Through reverting all upon itself, it elevates existence, and in this way accounts for all things passing in and out of existence. So there's a Vivivic god that functions through the power of Usia, so maybe that's power again? We already had a power of Usia that protects. Reverting all upon itself, it's interesting, elevates existence. No, existence. In this way accounts for all things passing in and out of existence. So it's the cause of generation. Another god is required for the power of Usia. Oh, I see. So one functions through the power in order to elevate, and is the cause for everything that comes in and out of existence. But that power that's being utilized is a different god. The god required for the power of Usia. Since the capacity for a divinity to turn about itself is divine Usia. Interesting. Another god is needed to provide the condition for that power of Usia to extend to condition. That power of Usia to extend to individual natures. Interesting. Interesting. So we have another triad here. The triads, they're all to do with power of Usia. So there was a preserving, which was all kinds of Usia. There's an Usia that preserves wholes. There's an Usia that preserves intelligence and energy and everything. And there's an Usia that preserves physical bodies and allows for our conversion. But here we have a power of Usia. So that was a preserving Usia. Now we have a power Usia. The highest functioning, the highest use of that power of Usia elevates everything to the top. We preserving gods. Underneath that we'll have the power of Usia, which is also the Vivivic. Vivian. Imagine a beautiful person named Vivian that inspires you to do philosophy. Someone with a beautiful soul. Vivific. So there's the highest. What colors do we have? Color. Yellow. There's a functioning through the power of Usia to revert by reverting upon itself. So the highest functioning of Usia is to revert upon itself. And then there's a god who is doing that, is reverting upon itself. And in doing so, it has the result of elevating existence. Counts for all things passing in and out of existence. This is interesting because this is what we've been talking about. This process that we're going through is you are turning about away from physical things and pleasures and gossip and who Tom Cruise is dating, to spend your time and your conversations over coffee reflecting on yourself. That's ousia. Not reflecting on yourself to justify your ignorance and beliefs. No. To use the dialectic and understanding. That's the goal. But as a result of you doing this, reverting upon yourself, it has a secondary benefit. Hey, welcome, Golden. Thank you for the Gengars. Oh, who are spinning? Spinning Gengars. As a result of you doing this yourself. Oh, cheers, Isadori. It's my birthday today. That's why I'm drinking from a can. Coffee in a can. It's my treat. Mocha. As a result of you turning about upon yourself, it has the secondary benefit of elevating everyone else around you. By you being someone who's engaged in reason and understanding not just the physical world, but principles of the physical world, to know yourself. There's a quote from, I think it's attributed to Nelson Mandela. By shining your light, this is your light, self-reflection, ousia, you become a beacon for others to awaken the light within themselves. That principle is the highest existence of power, or ousia. So you are inspiring, vivifying, by functioning through the power of ousia, by reverting upon yourself, you have the effect of elevating existence. People who embrace themselves, allow themselves to be themselves most fully, separating from any image or belief about themselves, embracing reason, understanding, reflection on principles and causes, to know the self, become a guiding light, an inspiring light. Which we were actually talking about a second ago, because something's got to inspire you to get into this game. So we talked about the beauty and harmony, or the whole and the parts of music. Thank you. Thank you for the happy birthday. I am eternity years old because I am functioning through the power of ousia, which is eternal. Okay, the next one. There's a God required for that power of ousia for its highest existence or highest functioning, since the capacity for divinity to turn about itself is divine ousia. So we have a God that has to be needed for the purple. The power of ousia and that's divine ousia. Which would be the capacity for yourself to completely turn around and know yourself as eternity. Divine ousia. Then another God is needed to provide the condition for that power to extend to bods, to extend to all of the people following the stream, individual natures. This is all power of ousia. Isn't that interesting? Condition for the power of ousia, which is orange. So, oops. So there's a power of Usia over here in the power corner of the triad, number 2, to turn upon itself. And there has to be also a power of Usia to oh, my chicken fell down. Chicken fell down. Power of Usia to extend to, in green, individual natures. So what have we learned about the triad of the Vivific triad? Well, it's all power, that's what Vivific means, but it's also Usia. They're all the power of Usia to revert upon itself. Whoops, I'm the wrong thing. Sorry about that, guys. The power of Usia here by reverting upon itself to elevate existence. We have another power of Usia to turn upon itself, and a power of Usia to extend to individual natures. It's all power of Usia. But this is fantastic because it shows you, this is a fantastic demonstration of this triad. Because this is the highest existence which utilizes the power here and the activity. So in other words, these two come together, this plus this, to reach that. Why? Because this highest existence of Usia is the power of Usia to turn about upon itself. As you turn about upon yourself, you have to be turning about upon yourself first, but that also has that glowing effect, has that extending effect to inspire others, which means there has to be a condition for that power to extend to others. So this is your way of being, your internal power, that has the activity, effect of helping other people, which is, as a way of being, you take the two together in the highest possible way, and you have that third. By functioning through the power of Usia, this one, you have the effect of elevating all existence. So it's these two together. So we can go back, have a look at the other one, and see if it works here as well. So the preserving of intelligence and energy, preserving of all physical bodies. Here we have all intelligence and energy and all physical bodies. Therefore, the two together gives the pure Usia, which is the source of all wholes, all intelligent wholes and all physical bodies. Or pure mind, it's not physical bodies. It illuminates physical bodies with power and strength to awaken their internal Usia, as we are doing now. In other words, souls, individual minds, and the mind. The two together is all wholes. Or using ontology, preserves the wholes here in the realm of being and preserves wholes here, souls, therefore preserves everything. See how the two come together? So we can go back to our previous one about harmony and music. The beauty and harmony of music to reach the dialectic, or... See, I think dialectic should be here, because you use understanding and knowledge together to function in the highest way. If knowledge is about the good and the beautiful, and understanding is its harmony or parts, the dialectic uses both to help people develop an understanding of reality by using this as your model, or in midwifery to help people have an understanding of their false image of beauty, their false image of strength and justice that keeps their false beliefs alive. So maybe dialectic should sit here. In which case, beauty, harmony, and what? What would sit here for music? All right, so let's put let's cover all our bases. Put this here just in case. Maybe the one self? It sounds like ousia is the ability to self-reflect. Yes. Ousia is the ability to self-reflect. And if you self-reflect in this kind of a way, you can awaken your internal ousia. So this self-reflection through the dialectic or understanding awakens a power to this ousia within yourself, which converts you. Awakens a power and strength to convert you to a higher nature, which is this one. You can know yourself as eternity. That's pure ousia, separated from your physical senses. When you stop thinking about your physical stuff and physical gossip and who Tom Cruise is dating. It's also a preserving. It keeps your soul together. It keeps everything together. So this is ousia as a preserving. Pure ousia keeps all the wholes together. There is a vivific ousia that inspires you, allows you to turn upon yourself in that pure being sense, but also in doing so has an effect on physical natures. Therefore, the highest functioning of ousia in the power sense, we're talking about it as a preserving. It keeps things together, but also as a powerful sense. As you function through the power of ousia, make use of this power of ousia by turning about upon yourself. You elevate your own existence, and you can become a beacon to help others. Last among the vivific triad is the god. What? Last among this vivific triad is the god whose activity is to realize Okay. Last among this vivific triad is the god whose activity is to realize that activity of ousia in the birthing of all living things, and to realize that activity of ousia and in birthing all living things, and to ensure there are principles for determining a true and noble birth from those empty of worth. Okay. So we've got 4 gods here. There's a god that functions through the power of Usia. Through reverting upon itself, it elevates existence. In this way, it counts for all things passing in and out of existence. Number 1. Number 2. Another god is required for the power of Usia, since the capacity for divinity to turn upon itself is divine Usia. Another god, 3, is needed to provide the conditions for that power to extend to individual natures. Last, 4, among this Vivific triad, again, triad means 3, is the god whose activity is to realize that activity of Usia in the birthing of all living things and ensuring there are principles for determining a true and noble birth from those empty of worth. So, what we just talked about, Usia is a self-reflecting capacity. It isn't just thinking about yourself, navel gazing, as people say. No, it's this. This is the activity of turning upon yourself, which allows you to judge true and noble births from those that are empty. That's midwifery. So the activity of self-reflection is philosophical midwifery. It's the dialectic applied to, well, both. Okay, you could say midwifery is both, or you could say philosophy and midwifery and dream analysis, all 3. Because the true and noble births are the dialectic applied to truth, what we're doing here. The false beliefs that prevent us from this activity is midwifery. That's the empty of worth, the sick babies that can't survive. And dream analysis is the guide for both. So, that's the activity. Philodianoia, or the dialectic. So, I reckon I think what we've got is this one. I think this is what we're doing here. Okay, so the highest functioning is to completely revert upon yourself, and in doing so, elevate all of existence. It makes sense. But how do you do that? Well, there has to be... what's it say here? The capacity for divinity to turn upon itself. The power of Usia to have the capacity you can't do this unless there already exists the capacity to turn about upon itself. In divine Usia, and also there has to be the condition has to exist. Condition. The condition for that power of Usia to extend to individual natures. To extend to individual natures. Okay, that makes more sense. So this is the power, the capacity and conditions. So for you to turn upon itself, there has to be some power that gives it your capacity and gives this condition to extend to others. And that extension to others is the activity is a birthing in all living things principles for determining a true and noble birth. Principles for determining a true and noble birth. From those empty of worth. We need these principles to exist. In birthing in all living beings. These would be the principles of the dialectic, midwifery and philosophy. So you can judge what are the ones that lead you up, anagogic, and the ones that are empty, the ones that keep you down. One is perfecting, one is purifying. One is philosophy, one is midwifery. One is your left hand, one is the right hand. And you shake it all about, and you do the hokey pokey, and that's what it's all about. Because this is the highest activity of the vivific. Well, that's the activity that if you do this activity, you will awaken the power to turn about upon yourself and the power to inspire others, and therefore you will have this highest existence, which will be, you will be functioning through the power of Usia by reverting upon yourself using this activity, fulfilling it in this state of being, which also elevates others. It's a way of being and an activity, which actually was our understanding of the state of being of understanding. Because one of our questions was, we talked about what is the right. If we have these 5 categories of development, down the bottom, dualists, strict dualists, a disconnection, there is no paradigm, a mass of differences. All you can say is this is my personal opinion, no standards, the modern democrats. No principles or standards. Above that, you have believers, the MAGAs, the fascists. Now, that's below in that it's a fall. I left the group, but I haven't picked up understanding. So a mass of difference or strict dualists, believers, others to others. This is other from self. Self to others is understanding. That's number 3. Self-knowing itself is number 2, pure knowledge. So here we have the dialectic we just defined as being able to judge good and noble births from pathologos, sick ones, along with the capacity for divine ousia, that's knowledge, gives you this existence, the highest existence of self. But we said, okay, we've been understanding what's it like to feel like a believer. Well, we just use the categories of the dialectic to define those states of being, To find what it feels like, we take the parts, the terms of the dialectic, everything is a whole and a part, same, different, like, unlike, limited, unlimited, timeless, out of time, in time, out of time, rest and motion. So these are the primary categories of thought and existence and perception. These are pairs, but we can recognize the believer in that they are in conflict. So they are a state of existence of internal and external conflict. That's why believers are causing all the terrible shit in the world. And number 5, the strict dualists, the mass of difference, create the conditions because they don't have principles to say, hey, you fuckers in belief that are causing all of the problems in the world shouldn't be in fucking politics. They can't say that because that 5th category is defined by a disconnection. While believers are in conflict between them, they are parts attacking the whole of humanity. They are different and they can't be the same. They hate people to be the same. They are unlike and they can never be like everyone else. They have to accept limits for belief, so they can't be free. They only exist in time, so they function to manipulate the physical world and enslave people because they cannot experience eternity that's timeless. They are always in motion, they can never be at peace. Onward, Christian soldiers, marching as to war. So while that's conflict, the conditions is that 5th category, which is there is no whole. So the Democrats can't say there shouldn't be a fascist party. There shouldn't be right wing. That's stupid. Just in medicine, we have principles. You can't be a doctor who wants to harm patients. It's not allowed. Democrats can't say that because they are 5th. A massive difference. They have no whole, no principles. Well, maybe some fascism, maybe some insider trading, maybe some wealth inequality. Bullshit. As a state of being, disconnected. There is no whole, there is no meaning, there is nothing the same, there is no freedom, there is no peace. Well, okay, then how do we understand what it means to be third category of being, understanding? And the text said, hey, your state of existence is one, while functioning providentially in the other. So your state of existence is the whole, while functioning most ideally, intelligently and caringly, providentially, to the parts. Your state of being is at rest, while functioning ideally in motion. Your state of being is timeless, while your functioning is most ideal, providential in time. Your state of being is timeless, or is free or unlimited, while functioning the best possible way to those who are limited, who are blocked. And that's what we just got, isn't it? The Vivek Triad. Because our state of being is divine ousia, while our functioning is most ideally to people who are blocked, helping people birth those that are empty, false beliefs, pathologos beliefs, but also functioning most providentially to those who are doing this. Doing philosophy, giving birth to true and noble births. So therefore, the existence of the top of that triad, the top term, utilizes this and this in principle. That's what the hyparxis is a fancy word for the top. It's the state of being of the third, understanding, which utilizes this as a way of being and this as an activity. By functioning through the power of ousia, by reverting upon yourself as a state of existence, you also elevate existence through the dialectic. Hooray! Which is interesting because it's utilizing knowledge, which is the second state of mind, as well as understanding. So understanding, while it's the third stage, might transcend even knowledge, which is curious. All right. Onward, onward, onward. Isn't this neat? I think it's neat. We're understanding the primary principles of all of reality, a kind of learning that will apply to any incarnation, any dimension, any universe or multiverse in this lifetime and beyond. As well as understanding the cause of all human problems, belief, number 4, and strict dualists, number 5. The right and then the left. That's interesting, isn't it? Now, there are people who embrace this, who are at the hyparxis of the physical world here. The hyparxis, the top, and are wanting to care for the world, empathy, good heart, and are looking for principles, causes, and preconditions to help the world. Without having recognized what they're participating in is this. True philosophy, Socratic philosophy. But it helps to put the right language or words on it, and so you can better communicate it to others to say, hey, by the way, this is what everyone is here for. It's literally, we can only survive as a species if we realize our purpose is to go from 4 and 5, left and right, to 3, understanding. So by the way, those people identify as leftists because of the idea that the left has as an ideal. They don't have it because they haven't awoken understanding. Progression. Conservatives conserve the false beliefs. Progressives are supposed to progress. They don't do it, or the people in authority don't do it, but there are good people who are awakening that third, awakening understanding, who do say, I'm a leftist. So we could say they're true leftists, and the modern Democrats are bullshit artists because they are strict dualists, or a massive difference with no ideal or paradigm. Nancy Pelosi has never stood on anything, any genuine principle of the logos, but there are other people trying their best to do that within the left. So, but it is ironic that the authorities who speak for the left and the right are the causes of all human suffering. We're asked backwards. We need a 3-person. We need a 3-person. Not only that, we have to make a persuasive case that when a 3-person emerges from our ranks, we say, please help us. We're sick of fascists and we're sick of corrupt bullshit artists on the left. We're sick of mass suffering and inequality and injustice and genocide and children being murdered for fun because that's the mark of knowing for a believer. Sadism. And no one standing up because that's the mark of a knower for dualists. Massive slops. We're sick of it. Please, rule us so you can establish laws. By the way, these people want to rule so they can fuck with us, so they can scam our money and play out their sadism. These people will never. They're not interested in money. Because they're interested in their soul, because that transcends the physical world. Money's physical shit. You're not gonna take that with you. You're not here for that. So we don't have to worry about them being corrupt, because that's not their nature. But we have to say, hey, I know you're not interested in money like these bastards, or hurting people like these bastards, or being a coward like these bastards. We know, so what's going to be our pitch? We have to make a pitch. Why would they help us? Considering they're likely to be the people most hated by these people and these people. We've got to make a good pitch to these threeers, understanders. And that pitch better include, we won't hurt you like these people want to do. We won't devalue you like these people want to do. We won't ignore you like both of them want to do. No, we won't ignore you like fives want to do, and we won't try and kill you like fours want to do. Maggers, Abrahamics, religious people. Kill the non-believer, like Abraham was instructed to kill his son. As a mark of being a believer, because they don't have knowledge as a feeling. That's two. That's got to be part of our pitch. But isn't it interesting? Left, right, question mark. Who are they? Where are they? How can we find them? How can we make the pitch? And of course, before all that is, how can we do it ourselves? How can we be that kind of ruler to our own soul? How can we ourselves utilize the capacity that exists as a principle of reality that we are going to personify as one of the gods, the capacity to turn upon ourselves in divine usia or knowledge, and the condition, utilize the condition to extend that as an inspiring nature to others, utilizing the activity. So we've got power, activity, and existence. Remember? Put them on the board. The triads, all of these triads have an existence or hyparxis, which is the highest functioning. Existence on color. Existence or hyparxis. The fullest flowering is the hyparxis. Has a power over here that it utilizes along with the activity. For its highest existence or hyparxis. And over here we were talking about the power of beauty with the harmony of ordering terms comes together in the dialectic, or understanding the dialectic dianoia with whatever experiences we've had of that pure usia. Carry that with you as well, because that's the model of beauty and justice. Use them both together in your functioning of the skill and art that we are all here to master, the dialect. In other words, this plus this equals this, which is the fullest flowering. That's why it's the top of the pyramid. See? This corner and this corner reaches that. By the way, even though there are corners here, it's 1, 2, 3. Because this one functions in the middle. You need to have you need a power to do your activity. And that power comes from the highest. So this is the mean term, by the way. So just so you know, even the left-hand side of these triangles are still a little bit higher than the right-hand side. So they should be kind of more like this, I suppose. Like that. Like a bit of a wonky triangle. All right. Socrates. These gods are the source of life-giving, all-vivific power of ousia for all living beings. So, what we've been talking about are the principles for that activity, the source of the activity. Notice, I misspoke when I said that here, with music and the dialectic, it's the activity, but in the vivific power, it's not the activity. The activity is the next triad. So far, we've got the... haven't done it on the board yet, but we have the ruling triad. Terrible. Ruling triad. We have the preserving gods or triad, which preserves ousia. We have the power or vivific triad. And then we have the anagogic or activity, which is next. So, so you see here, it's the capacity for self-reflection. It's the condition to extend to individuals. It's the principles of the dialectic. These things empower us. This is the power we have to utilize. These are the causes and conditions we need to make use of in our activity. These gods are the source of the life-giving or vivific power of ousia for all living beings. Wow. Wow.
Wow, 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 wow.
Among the last triads of gods, which we call the anagogic. This guy calling his shots over here. How did I know that was going to be next? We call the anagogic is the leader of individual souls to the profound activity of ousia. Oh, it's ousia all the way down, folks. Isn't that interesting? In the philosophical life and the
more holes, the better.
couldn't be more relevant. Holes, WH. Dialectic. Dialectic. So the leader of the anagogic triad leads all individual cells through the profound activity of ousia in the philosophical life. That's what we're doing here. If you follow the stream, you're in the philosophical life. And ultimately, it's leading us, all of this work and fun and awesome times we have here together leads to the dialectic, which would make our third category of gods, the anagogic, which is a fancy word I keep talking about because it's so cool. Impress your friends. Anagogic means upward moving. Anagogic triad has at the top leader of individual souls. Oh, we're just talking about, hey, who should be leading our world? Who do we have to make this pitch to? These bods, understanders or leaders of individual souls. Same thing with your individual soul. How do you lead your soul? Be a dialectician to yourself, buddy. Which will then allow you to function and become a beacon to others, inspiring others. Enough of us wake up, and then we'll demand it of our spiritual and political leaders, and we'll save our species. Or, if not, at least you can do it to your own soul while you're here. It's a win-win.
It's a win-win-win-win.
Leader of individual souls. This is our activity as bods. If you're a person and you're on this channel, then this is your job. If you are a incorporeal entity listening in, doesn't apply to you. Actually, maybe it does, actually. If you have an individual selfhood of any kind, this is what we're doing here. As a leader of all individual bods, souls, sorry. Bods just means a person, not actually a body. To the leader of two, the profound activity of Usia in the philosophical life and dialectic. Hooray. Dialectic. Which is our question back here. Hey, you're playing beautiful music, or you're making a functioning with beauty and harmony in another kind of a way, like the people that we mentioned earlier. Then how do you make sense? Like, what do you do? People are attracted to your content or your music because where is it? Oh, here. Because there is a beauty in its simplicity and a harmony in its order. What do you do with that attention? Lead them to the dialectic and the philosophical way of life. Notice, most content tries to not engage with this, but rage bait and slop. And what do they lead them to? What do the Petersons and the Shapiros and the Charlie Kirks and all of these disgusting people and the Logan Pauls and the Mr. Beasts of the world, what do they lead to? Not the dialectic, debate. They just debate their stupid ass opinions. They want to be professional. I'm a professional opinion haver. They use some sort of Joe Rogan podcast or some sort of rage bait or some disgusting thing that gets clicks. And then as soon as they have the attention or the clicks, what do they all start becoming? Professional opinion havers. Here is Jordan Peterson's 10 rules for life. Here's Ben Shapiro's opinions about how the world should be run. Here's Jordan Tate's I'm a leader for the alpha males. Here's Joe Rogan's, I don't know, new way of being for the Rogan sphere. Here's Oprah Winfrey's way of, I don't know, 10 rules to live, love, and learn, or whatever she says. Same thing, they want to be professional opinion havers. What do you do with opinions? Opinions are based on belief, not truth, not logos. It's in opposition. What do all of these fascists do with their opinions? Use language to silence feedback. Or, when they get in power, like Trump, kill people who try and talk back. Deport people who speak out against the genocide in Palestine. Send in the troops to New York and Chicago and LA and people who want to reason. Shut down the academies. That's debate. Debate is fucked. It's anti-human. It's anti-reason. It's winning. It makes me sick to see how these people abuse language itself. Now that's my thing. I got to be more compassionate because they're just children. They're adults, but they're children in terms of the logos. They don't know how to think. They don't know how to use words. They have words. They just use them to hurt each other. That's our evolution. That's our species. The way humans evolve is unique in the cosmos in that we had an asteroid that came in and killed all of the biggest species. The species that have been developing over millions and millions of years, kaput. So we little human small beings didn't have all these huge predators that we were competing against evolutionarily, allowing us to evolve into language very quickly without having to use it to reason and solve problems that we would have had to face had the asteroid not hit. We're in a very unique predicament as human beings. So we have language, but we're infants, evolutionarily speaking. That's why the politicians always fucking lie. They're using words to hurt people. That's why the politicians who have words and say, I'm a big smart leader, I know words and I can make laws. Laws are the logos. The logos applied to human species to be acting in alignment with reality. That's what laws are. Not how they're used. They're used to go against nature. Let's remove regulations. Let's pollute the environment so the billionaires can make a few more bucks. Let's enslave human beings. Let's genocide the Palestinians. Let's kill 1 million Iraqis. It's fucked. In principle, because the laws are not in alignment with the logos. Logos and laws are supposed to be synonymous. That's what language allows. But they're misusing language. We have guns in the hands of babies. That's our species. Only the guns are not guns. They are, but they're words that allow for them. Guns shouldn't fucking exist. You don't solve problems by shooting people. That's stupid. As a technology, it shouldn't be allowed to exist. That's a mark of how juvenile we are. Irrational and immature as a species. That's the evolutionary cause to where we are. The name for that is not philosophy, it's philodoxia, love of opinions. That functioning is anti-logos. Socrates calls it philonikos, the love of conflict and fighting. So, they're not knowers, they are opinion havers. They are not carers and leaders, they are lovers of fighting. That's the nature of a believer, by the way. We've already seen that. And what do they do with their attention? They create, well, first of all, they create fake beautiful things. Appearance of beauty. Look at my Bugattis. They make fake ordered reasoning. I reckon men are the best in the Matrix. To generate outrage or attention. And what do the Andrew Tates of the world do with that attention? Debate. Anti-logos, love of contention, philonikos, love of opinions, philodoxia. Anti-logos, that's the debate. Which is the inverse or the distortion of what we are learning we're supposed to do, create genuinely beautiful things in music and the content creators we've been talking about recently. Actually ordered reasoning statements, harmonized rationality. And the question for all of us is, what do we do with it? once you've got people listening to you, tuning into your stream, subscribing to your Instagram for Keenan Teenan. What's his name? Keegan Teagan. And we just got our answer. Guide them to this. Not debate, not opinions, not fighting, dialectic. That's what you do with the attention that you generate by being a beautiful, harmonized soul. Wow. Wow. And also, Philonikos, I'll sleep on that new one. Oh yes, it's a good word. Philonikos, love of contention. Philodoxia, love of opinions. They don't want truth, they want victory. Yes, exactly. What a terrible use of words. Considering who they're fighting against is self. If our movement is to, from belief number 4 into 3, 2, 1, understanding is open to everyone. Mind, as pure knowledge, is all mind. That's why the experience is so profoundly blissful. It's every living being in all possibilities, in all times, all at once. That's how come it's beautiful, beauty itself. Why would you be in opposition to yourself? Who are you trying to win a victory over? And of course, even that's the shadow of this. How many selves? One. The one self. It's insane. But you're right. Philonikos, love of victory. Fighting, contention. Getting them clicks, baby. But what we do, as we harmonize ourselves, guide people to this way of being, to the profound activity of Usia. How do you make sense of that capacity of your internal power? What do you do with your internal, all the things in the Vivific triad? What do you do with your innate, preserving? What do you do with your innate intelligence and energy? What do you do with your innate power and strength? What do you do with your wholeness? That's the preserving triad. What do you do with the principles of your capacity to know yourself as knowledge? What do you do with your principle of being able to judge truth from false, debate from dialectic? What do you do with that? You make use of those preserving triads with the principles of the Vivific triad to function in a way that leads people to the philosophical life and dialectic. Wow. Polemics are easy to write, but solutions are difficult. Yes, even babies can use words to fight, which is why the most ignorant people are currently in politics. This requires work. Not work, play. It's the noblest game. It's fun. We're solving mysteries just like in a video game, except when you finish the video game, you're not like, oh, I kind of feel empty. No. You elevate, you level up your being. It's fun. It's the funnest game in town. And if you do, philosophy is the cure, absolutely. It's the cure, dialectic. The cure, the purification of what's false. And not only is it the cure, once you're cured, you go to the doctor to get cured, but you have a healthy body, then you can go to a personal trainer and get the excellence of your body. Philosophy is also the ticket to excellence. It's the cure or the purification and the perfection. It's 2 in 1, baby. It's a win-win.
It's a win-win. It's a win-win, a win-win, a win-win, a win-win, a win-win, a win-win, a win-win.
Philosophy is the cure. But yeah, that's a nice bumper sticker. If you do decide to use that as a bumper sticker and sell it on Etsy or something, then give me 10% of your profits. That's the thing with philosophy. You end up with all these fantastic, beautifully simple and most harmoniously ordered little phrases like that. So you can create like bumper stickers or fridge magnets or embroidered pillows. But what we're learning here is, hey, all of these fantastic axioms or principles or that we are discovering, make sure on the back of the fridge magnet you have your beautifully simple quote that you ended up with, which has the beautiful simplicity and the rational order. Make sure on the back of it include something about the dialectic, because that's where you're leading people to with your insights of the whole, beauty, knowledge, your ability to articulate your insights as you just did in language, harmony, understanding the parts, whole and part. You use that to guide people to the dialectic. So have that on the back of the magnet. Or your front bumper sticker. I don't know, you'll figure out something. Just give me 10%. Because I'm in it for the money, baby. Also, I figured out why my coffee tasted bad last time. It's because if I have a coffee that I make, and I have this coffee from the can, it makes my other coffee taste garbage. I wonder if there's a lot of sugar in here. A little bit, not much. Philosopher's got to eat too. Yes. Feed your philosopher. So, among the last triads of gods, which we call the anagogic, is the leader of individual souls to the profound activity of ousia in the philosophical life and the dialectic.
Wow, 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 wow.
Then there is the need for the awakening of ousia. Here we go. So how do we pull this stunt off? How do we lead people to this greatest activity? Have you fed a philosopher today? Add that to the Etsy store. Awakening of ousia by the power of love. Ooh. So how do we get into this game? We talked about beauty and harmony in music, and the beauty and the simplicity of and the harmony in the well-ordered statements that we're coming up with today, and talking about in other content creators. That beauty awakens love. Awakening of ousia by the power of love. It's the power of love. Do, do. Where's my guitar? No, don't get my guitar. That raises all souls by the desire. Raises all souls. Notice the false images of beauty and the false images of rationality that attracts people to the Petersons and the Trumps and the Shapiros and the Tates of the world shows us that all souls can perceive it. We're just being duped because we haven't been training properly. In other words, we've got a pretender on the throne. But true desire for goodness and beauty awakens the power of love. Awakening of Usia by the power of love that raises all souls by the desire for goodness and beauty. Last of all, there is a kind of activity that turns about to focus on the source of all and to realize through the turning towards a higher mode of being that they have completed their philosophical journey. Wow. There's an activity. Turn about to focus on the source of all. That realizes that you're in a new way of being. So there is some activity that we are engaged in this, I guess this is the activity, that is also necessary to focus on the source, number one, but also recognize your way of being and your activity is complete. So, power of love. Purple. What? Power of love. Ooh. Power of love. Awakens Usia. And raises all souls by the desire for, hey, not just beautiful appearance, but goodness. Has to be good. Can't be rage bait slop. Goodness and beauty. And the activity, so the highest existence is to lead people to the activity of Usia in the philosophical life and dialectic. And what color? Orange. Remember. The activity of focusing on the source by the way, is that literally what we're doing now? Are we focusing on the source of all? Are we focusing on right now the source of the all activity of souls? The source of all of the principles and preconditions for power and elevation through Usia? Are we focusing on the source of all wholes, all intelligence and energy, and all enlivening of bodies with souls? And we haven't done the first one yet. So we seem to be doing that right now, focusing on the source of all, which is the activity of the anagogic triad. If you learn to love this game, then you've got both. You're doing the activity right now, metaphysics and theology. You're loving it because you see how it comes together. You enjoy your insights. You enjoy the channel. Then the two of those together leads to its fullest flowering, the dialectic. So we're doing this one. We're doing whatever this one is, whatever God we're going to assign to this one, that's what we're doing right here. Love is a devotion to the perceived good. Ah, yes. Yes. We got to make sure our perception is right, though. I think that's why you put in the word perceived. It accounts for both. The sick love, our pathologos love, or love of appearances, or love of contention, or love of debate, compared to this kind of a love of genuine beauty, ousia, and goodness. And the dialectic. I'll throw that in there too. So, last of all, the kind of activity that turns about to focus on the source of all, and to realize through the turning towards a higher mode of being. So there's an activity that allows you to realize something. Put that in capitals. How can you realize something if you're not learning about it? Realize. Through turning towards a higher mode of being. By that. By turning. By the way, is love of dialectic, is love of understanding, philodianoia? Is that a higher way of being? Are we coming to a conclusion that this activity is the meaning of life, but it's not just a one-off, it's a way of being in everything we do, in this life and beyond? Then we are realizing that it's a by turning TURNING toward, toward a higher mode of being. Zoom in. Higher mode of being. Remember, we've been spending a lot of time understanding the mode of being of believers. A little bit of time for the mass of difference dualists. But also, we've been wondering about what's the mode of being of an understander, a dianoia, philodianoia, love and understanding. It's a mode of being. Mode of being in capital letters. You realize that by turning towards this as a mode of being, that they have, here's a fancy word, completed. Completed. They have completed. their philosophical journey. In other words, there's an end. You finish. It's not the terrible end of believers, blow up the world so Jesus or Allah or whoever comes back, the rapture, the death cults of Abrahamic religions. It's not that. It's not the fifth, the massive difference. There is no end, there is no point, anything is anything, life is what you make it to be. If you want to be fascist, who's to say? Let's just compromise with the right, with the fascists. It's not that. They say there is no end. There is an end. It's not a terrible end. It's this end. There is a completion in your purpose here. But you won't be able to recognize that you have reached the end unless you do this activity. Unless you, one, focus on the source, metaphysics and theology. I mean, theology, once we put gods to each of these principles, but that's what we're doing as a metaphor. Recognize that these are all descriptors of what we make sense of in our own way of being. It's not a dry, dusty, academic, logical exercise. Yes, I read Hegel. Yes, very intellectually fascinating. Oh, I read a bit of Nietzsche too. Yes. It allows me to have very good debates with my colleagues at the faculty. The faculty colleagues and I, we have very good debates. I'm a bit of a structural materialist, and he's an empirical nominalist. Oh, yes. Yes. Bollocks, all that crap. It's a way of being. If you don't recognize it's a way of being, how are you going to be inspired? How are you going to wake up to love? By the way, that's Aristotelianism. It's just a dry, dusty academic wankery. Wankery is the official academic term for it, I think. But it's not like that. You actually realize that it's a mode of being, and that's necessary to recognize and judge you have completed your philosophical journey. Journey. Yay. It's the anagogic triad. Engage in this activity of focusing on the source of all. That's why we don't read Hegel and Nietzsche and those gorms. We read Pierre Grimes and Socrates and learn from Socrates' teacher Parmenides and Diotima as well, because it allows us to actually understand what's going on. The source of all, metaphysics and true theology. Ain't no belief up in here, bitch. Right, and that when you realize that this all comes together in a beautiful and good way for you, that awakens your love and inspires you. So there's our activity and the inspiration coming together into mastery of the dialectic, which is makes use of your ousia. And these are the principles of the inspiring ousia: the capacity to turn around, the condition to extend to others, the principles needed for dialectic to judge whether or not something is true or false. Having the two together, you are turning about upon yourself through the dialectic, through the activity, in a way that inspires and elevates everything. For that to exist, there has to be principles that keep together all these things as wholes. There has to be something keeping together all of the intelligence and energy and power of nature. And there has to be some principle that preserves the power and strength within our individual bodies to go through what we've just mentioned, to make use of the vivific and the anagogic. And there has to be a principle that preserves that and allows us to convert if we are open to turning about and receiving that power. And then above that preservation is the ruling triad. And let's go back and finish that one off. Okay, first of the gods is the source of all that exists, and he is guided by divine wisdom. For the source of all, and it is through that he takes care of all living beings and non-living beings. So he's the source of everything. Oh, there we go. The activity is to focus on the source, so we better focus on this first God. Source of all, guided by divine wisdom, and takes care. Source of all that exists. Guided by divine wisdom. So we better get that in us as well, divine wisdom. Or not in us, awaken ourselves to it, probably more accurate. Wisdom, through which we can take care. There's our providence. There's our real empathy with skill. Take care of all things. Living and non-living. So, hey, by the way, do we need to take care of all human beings? Not just the Jews, not just the MAGA, not just the Christians? Yes, all living beings. Anyone who says that wealth inequality can exist, there's a slave class or a poor class, or children don't get healthcare, or only the rich get healthcare and food and lobster meals, is fucked. That's not taking care of all living things. You've got a problem, buddy. You're not qualified for the job. Second, anyone that says, well, Coca-Cola can make more profits if they don't how to solve academic wankery. Yeah, you tell me, and I'll join you in the battle. Non-living beings, hey, pollute the planet, lie about climate change to save a few bucks for the oil companies. That's also fucked. Our job as human beings, if we are to be mature and rational and not sadistic believers, is to take care of all living and non-living, guardian caretakers of the planet, and also caring for all life. If we don't, we go extinct. Because of course we do. If you were the universe, and in a way you are, if you were the universe, would you want a species that's actively in disharmony with yourself? And with itself, within its own species? Of course not. This is called growing up. So, and there's a principle for that. That's the highest principle. Second, there is a God who is the cause of Usia's power and motion. So the cause of Usia. Oh, again, it's all Usia. This is all Usia. Interesting. The cause. Interesting. Because look, power of Usia that proceeds into activity. This is all Usia. Interesting. These are all aspects and principles of Usia and functioning. So the cause of Usia is power of motion, ruling over motion and generation. Cause of Usia's power. A god of Usia, damn. They're all gods of Usia. It seems. This is the cause of Usia's power and rules over all motion and generation. All motion and generation. Because here we had the preserving, but the preserving of all wholes is pure Usia. And the preserving of intelligence and energy is the intelligence and energy of Usia. That's all existence. And that which illuminates our physical bodies is our own Usia. So the preserving gods are all versions of Usia. The Vivific, the highest existence of Vivific, is the power of Usia by returning upon yourself. It's the power. So Vivific is the power triad. It's this corner of the gods. So here, existence, power, and activity. Here is Vivific. Here is ruling. Here is anagogic, and here is the preserving above all, overall. The power is power of Usia. The god that has that maintains the capacity of Usia to turn about itself, and the capacity of Usia to extend to individuals, and the principles of using that Usia to turn about and judge. It's not just the experience, there's that. It's also Usia through understanding. So Usia as pure knowledge, or Usia out of time, eternity, and Usia, or the principles for Usia in time, the principles for judging births in dialectic and midwifery and dream analysis. Giving us the state of being outside of time and its functioning in time, which was the state of being of understanding. Ooh. And the activity is the activity of Usia, the dialectic. Now that's interesting because, okay, the power of love is if you love something, you've awakened your Usia, baby. Someone is beautiful enough to remind you of this quest. That's why you're inspired. That's why you're in awe. What do you do with it? This. Make use of this power with this activity by focusing on the source of all, which would be that first God, recognizing that that first God is the way of being that we're after, and once you've reached it, you've completed your journey. So whoever it is in your life, or whatever it is in your life that awakens your love, add this game. Because the two of you, or you and your music or beloved, can go through this process to reach that first goal, making you the source of all, making you one guided by divine wisdom, taking care of all living and non-living beings through the power of love, or the power of Usia, the activity of the anagogic triad, dialectic. Or in other words, we could take the hyparxis, because the hyparxis is the union of these two. Therefore, you'd be functioning with the dialectic activity, using the power of Usia to turn upon yourself, creating and maintaining the source of all wholes, which would be a divine wisdom that can take care of all living and non-living beings. So that's just joining the 4 tops of the pyramids or the hyparxes together. And once you've reached that, so these 3 could come together in this one. If you have this way of being, you're done. You can have a celebration, we'll have a coffee in your honor, have a big old party, there can be cake, because you've done your job. You have this way of being of self. So that is the highest existence, being the source of all, the self, guided by the divine wisdom, taking care of all living beings. So there's our intelligence and care, or providence. Now the power of that is, well, the cause of Usia's power and motion is the power, and the activity of the ruling triad is the power of Usia that proceeds into activity, inspiring all generation in the physical world. Inspiring souls to know thyself. Power of Usia that proceeds into activity. Inspires. Generation. All generation in the physical realm. And inspires the soul to dun, dun, dun. Know thyself. Hooray.
I'm cute. Like, it's cutie pie.
Imagine people changing their positions and improving for the better.
That's the game. So, source of all that exists is the highest God that also rules by divine wisdom over everything. There is a God that maintains all motion and generation, and a God that proceeds into activity to inspire the activity of being to create the physical world, and inspires souls in the physical world to turn about and know the self. So there's inspires. There is some God that rules over everything, using wisdom and care. There is a God that creates all motion here in pure Usia, the motion to turn about and know yourself as knowledge, but all physical motion as well. And equally so, there's something that inspires the use of that power in generation. So it uses that self-reflection to generate the physical world, but also us bods here, us weans are inspired to go back. That's the activity of the ruling God, to use all that to know and care, to cause all generation here and here, or all self motion there and all time motion here. And the third God, the activity, makes use of that to motion to create. Hey, when being knows itself, it uses itself as a model to create the physical world. That's why our study of this gives us the principles for the physical world. That's why this is needed for justice and beauty in our physical world. It's the model. People who use beliefs and opinions are just looking at distortions and scraps and shadows. That's why our world is fucked. We need to have the actual model. Imagine trying to paint a picture and not looking at the model, but looking at what you've drawn so far. You start a drawing. Looks like it's a nose of a dog, maybe? But actually, no, that was a person. You've lost sight of the model. That's the nature of humanity currently. Lost sight of the model. So, there is a God that has motion here in knowing itself and motion in here through generation. And then there's another God that makes use of that motion to create the physical world because it turns upon itself as the model for the creation of our physical universe. And it generates things like peoples who have souls. That's us tuning into the stream. And that third, the activity God, makes use of our physical generation to know the self. Which awakens a state of being. So think about hyparxis is, while it's the top of one level, it's the beginning of the next. Like this. So you got 3, 2, 1. And the 1 is the hyparxis. The 1 is also the 3 of the next level. In other words, the highest state of the gods might be a way of being of self, where you're using divine wisdom, knowledge and understanding to care for all living and non-living beings in both realms, making use of the motion of being to cause the physical world, and making use of the motion of generation to return to know the self. Now, if that's the case, then we can have fun with these triads and ask, is the hyparxis of the anagogic triad what a pantheon arsenal of cognition? Absolutely! Hooray! I said hooray. Yeah. 12 principles in 4 lovely triangles. I'm glad that you are enjoying it. So, the activity that we're doing here to focus on this, along with our love of the game, will culminate into something called a mastery of the dialectic. That's the hyparxis. Is that highest of this realm the start of the next realm? My board's slow. Wait for it to catch up. Talk amongst yourselves while my board catches up. Oh, here it is. Now, the bottom of the Vivivic triad, the principles for determining a true and noble birth from those empty of worth. Yeah, kind of, isn't it? The principles of the dialectic. It's really what it is. The activity of the dialectic elevates to the start of the next realm the principles of the dialectic. Let's keep going. Let's see if it keeps going. The principles of the dialectic, with the power of Usia to know itself and extend to others, comes together. You got the dialectic and Usia together, allowing you to revert upon yourself as well as elevating the existence of all other beings. Makes sense? Is that the bottom of the next realm? An Usia that illuminates physical bodies with power and strength, and awakens an eternal Usia that converts the nature to all those capable of turning about through it. I guess. I mean, we have... I guess so. I guess it's... Once you've got that, you're keeping it. Once you've got this power of Usia yourself and elevating existence from the dialectic from here, keeping it. Having it always as a way of being. Illuminating all physical bodies as a way of being. Now that, preserving intelligence itself, so now that you can preserve that way of being and preserve the energy and purity of Usia itself, you've got a pure Usia, which is the source of all wholes. I'm not sure that one fits. The power of Usia that proceeds into an activity that inspires all generation in the physical realm and inspires the soul to know itself. Yeah, I think that fits, doesn't it? Inspires all generation that fit in the physical world, the source of all wholes, and inspires the knowing of the self, which you do through your own Usia as a way of being and the activity of the dialectic. Therefore, making use of the power, so this as your Usia power that you are preserving now, and also flows into that activity that inspires all generation as your way of being of Usia, and inspires the soul to know itself through the dialectic. In any motion or generation, preserved, leading to this, your state of being that is preserved with Usia, Vivivic, activity, dialectic, preserved with the preserving triad, always in every motion, in any world, in any activity. You are now the source of all that exists, using divine wisdom that you can take care of all living and non-living beings. So we can climb through this triad, through this hierarchy, through understanding the triads, and understanding the principle of hyparxis. So that's our soul's evolution or movement, culminating in that first God. Now, what we need to do now is put names on these critters. And I'm upside down. Let me de-upside down myself. I don't know why it always flips me upside down in this particular screen, but it does. So, wow, what a journey we've gone on. And we have a working hypothesis on how to move through them through hyparxis to reach that first God. But saying to reach that first God is a bit lame. Let's put a name on that first God. Personify them. It'll help us remember it. It'll help us talk about it. That's mythology. That's theology. Putting names of gods to personify these principles. That will be our activity. Anagogic. Our power or way of being, Vivivic, that we can preserve for all time, preserving, allowing us to rule our souls and all living and non-living beings through divine wisdom, extending care. Be a good being. Mega being, a good mega being. So, that's what we'll be doing next time, putting names on those gods. thank you for joining me in this one. And like always, you can join the Discord. You can find a link to the text below. You can follow on YouTube or Twitch. And you can buy me a coffee if you want to buy me a coffee for my birthday today. And yeah, have fun. And I'll see you in the next one.